and the private sector. Now, in August 2023, he was appointed as a Deputy Minister of Communication and Technology for the Republic of Sierra Leone by the President as well. Now, in this capacity, he has been entrusted to drive forward the nation's digital agenda, fostering innovation and leveraging technology to address societal challenges. Now, this appointment truly reflects the unwavering commitment to advancing Sierra Leone's technological landscape and promoting inclusive growth with digital transformation. So once again, let's give him a round of applause for the work that has been done and is continually being done in Sierra Leone. Now, Mr. Sona, one of the first questions I would love to ask you is that, does anybody know actually, by 2050 there's a statistic in terms of the number of people that will be in the African continent by 2050. Does anybody know the number of people we're expected to have on the continent by 2050? Does anybody know? Does anybody know what we have today? Anybody know how many billions people we have on the continent today? 1.4, I've just seen somebody mouth 1.4 billion people we have on the African continent. And by 2050 it's due to increase to 60%, by 60% in 2050. So my question really to you is, if that is a statistic that we're going to see rapid population growth by 2050, what is Sierra Leone doing as a government to really prepare for technological advancement to really support this rapid growth?
Thank you very much, and thank you the audience. So fundamentally, what Sierra Leone is doing, first we have to be conscious and aggressive about our ambitions. What do I mean by that? So our President, His Excellency, retired President Julius Maada Bio, did a pronouncement at the 6th Parliament, because this is his second inning in government. Last year we had our elections. So he said that we have to adopt the fourth industrial revolution to ensure that we don't left behind. And secondly, we have a youthful population. So all of the nuances that are involved to calibrate as a nation to be globally competitive, to match up with the indexes, has to be benchmarked on technology and innovation. So fast forward to that was what ushered in our ministry. Our ministry is just 7 months old in office, and that we are privileged to serve as the first cohort of ministers. So what we've done as a ministry, as a sector, in line with what I just said, we have worked out the roadmap, and thankfully, shortly in office, we were able to have a grant from the World Bank, $50 million grant, to check what we call the Sierra Leone Digital Transformation Project. But prior to that, as a ministry, we've also conceived the idea of having the very first tech city. So like a replica of Silicon Valley. So we've secured the land, and we are also very ambitious to have that tech city to be an SEZ facility. There's going to be a special economic zone facility. Fast forward to that, we're also working on policies and regulations to see how best all potential startups that will be coming to the tech city will have certain tax incentives. So the goal basically is to move our technological intentions from a mere ideation to an exportable commodity. Sierra Leone, unlike some other African countries, we don't have accent. You can tell from how I'm talking. I'm a Sierra Leone, I've been in Sierra Leone all my life. So we intend to have the call centers established in our tech city. We intend to have technologies and exportable commodity, in the sense we can incubate our young Sierra Leoneans and prepare them to send them to go out there to deliver and to be at par with the rest of the world. So that is some of the robust ambitions and the aggressive nature of what we intend to do to match up with the figure that you give, and I'm glad that you give us statistics.
I love that, and I love the aggression you're going through. And do you hear what he said? He said, because of the neutral accents, does everybody agree? The neutral Sierra Leone. I see some heads that have been in disagreement to you, but apparently the neutral accent that those in Sierra Leone have allows them to be able to put on call centers in this tech city that they are establishing. I commend the work that's been done on this tech city. Just as a follow-up to that, right? One of the things that I do, so I actually have a startup in Ghana, which is all around agriculture and really providing input financing for farmers across Ghana, commodity trading as well. And a portion of the work that we do is around crowdfunding. Now, when we launched the business, there was no regulation in Ghana relating to crowdfunding. And rather, we now had to work with the regulators hand in hand in order to bring forward the regulation. So my question to you is, given that you're bringing and establishing this tech city, there's going to be a lot of innovation. Do you think that regulation comes before innovation or innovation comes before regulation?
I have to be deliberate about this. I believe innovation precedes regulation. But at a certain point, they have to go parallel. So in Sierra Leone, for example, what we are going to encourage young innovators and potential innovators coming up. We are now, our ministry is now working on a number of plethora of potential regulations to guide. But we want to have them as flexible as possible so that they cannot entangle or even tend to stifle those new innovators coming up. So we all know Africa generally is struggling with revenue generation. So we know that. So that is why one of the key things we've pushed in cabinet right now, we're working on a policy document for subsequent presentation to the parliament for enactment as a regulation. The fact that we want to have a tax incentive on all tech or potential tech and innovation drive. So the tech city is going to encourage all startups or tech established companies or institutions to have a free tax zone. So that's what we intend doing. And we are very much happy that our president, encouraged the idea, he's part of it, he's rooting for it, and now it's just that we are putting the regulations. Because if you say you're going to put regulations, what are you going to regulate if the awareness of innovation is not even there? So you have to have the innovation first, and then you now know what to regulate, you now know what to do to be able to regulate so that I don't think you're not starting the operations of it.
I love that. But, given that the government wants to provide, tax incentives for these startups, tax incentives assume that an organization is about to make revenue. Now, if you're getting to a point where these are startups that you're trying to bring into the tech ecosystem, what are you doing, or what is the government doing to actually provide easier access to funding and finance? I remember speaking to the lady that's just there earlier on about a fund that she actually in South Africa and across the continent about providing funding for female founders, for example. What is your government doing around providing easier access to funding for these startups?
So there are two things. One, we want to have it as competitive as possible, and in the sense that it has to also be on a genuine platform. So one, the competition, and two, it has to be on a genuine platform. It doesn't have to be like the usual conventional practices where somebody will have to recommend you. So the policies or rules that we are working towards actually make it on a genuine or neutral basis. So for example, my minister, she's a female, and I'm proud to say she's younger as well. She's 33 years old. I think she's one of the youngest now in the continent. She's currently in South Korea as we speak. So we took a tour to Nigeria on the study because they've done the Digital Status and Finance Act. To study how they did it, what were the challenges, and how can we now retweak it to work within our own modus operandi. So the government have approached also the sub-cabinet committee, approached them on this, and we are very much pleased to let people know that we intend to put all the financial resources into one pot so that we can have competition over it, we can have genuineness over it. So at the end of the day, if you're selected to be a startup in Sierra Leone, it's based on merit, not based on someone recommending you.
It's important. So you spoke about the fact that you are learning from other countries. You mentioned Nigeria, and I think it's important about knowledge sharing and learning best practices from other countries. What do you think, as a continent, we can do to foster collaboration? What can be done between the countries to be able to ensure that we're working together?
It's very important. And earlier today, I had a meeting with Trixie, Yesterday, I had to push for that meeting, and today, thankfully, I was able to meet her. And I asked her one or two pertinent questions, but I'll summarize it in one. I said, you're hosting us here as African leaders. What is it that GITEX can help to improve our current predicament as a continent? Hosting us here is good. Not much can actually be achieved from here. And she said, what do you mean? What will you want GITEX to do? I said, this is it. We don't have enforceabilities from our regional bodies, be it ECOWAS, African Union, but we want GITEX, and this is my individual opinion, GITEX to foster collaboration between the private sector, African government. Let me give you, and I gave her the Chinese model, for example, Huawei. So in Sierra Leone, we have the fiber backbone, and that fiber backbone was done by Huawei. We have the fiber phase 1, the fiber phase 2. So we had the S cable that came through the submarine cables. So now we needed to have it all over the country. So how would we have done that? But when we approached us, interestingly, they did the design, they did the costing, they did everything they had to implement. Nobody can question that because we don't even know. We don't have the means to validate or to say, oh, this was 30 million, is this supposed to be 30 million? So my plea to her this morning was, how can GITEX further increase collaboration between African government and the private sector? So that those who are here and those who are collaborating with GITEX, we have a lot of digital needs. So that is one. Number two, in terms of collaboration, we also need GITEX again, or maybe future finance. So Sierra Leone is struggling with interoperability issues, for example. And the same steps for Guinea, Liberia, Ivory Coast, and countries within the Banner River Union Basin. So these countries don't even have national data centers. We are also struggling to have that one. So how can private sector institutions can actually bring up a model on a PPP basis? Because no government wants to take from its treasury to support these things when you have other germane concerns like health issues, education, or security issues to attend to. But if the private sector can come in with either be a BOT model or sustainable model, as long as it fits within the needs of the country, we can together initiate needs assessment, like I just mentioned about interoperability, the fintech area. And whatever you're doing will have to fit within the Banner River Union Basin, within the ECOWAS region per se. But you have to carve out what you want to do. We already know our constraints, bring them up, use the Chinese model. We cannot do it as governments. We have to rely on the private sector. But we don't want the private sector to take advantage of our vulnerabilities as African nations because we want to do things and for our people to see. But we want reputable, sustainable, model or roadmap that will improve our digital solutions moving forward.
A very strong call to action for GITEX to foster and facilitate public-private partnerships and be able to help the government be able to implement some of these ideas as well. We do have 1 minute left, and I would like to